Culture has been defined in a number of ways. It can be refers to a certain personal characteristic of an individual. In popular discourse, it refers to a celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaks of cultural show. And it is also refers to the sum of human beings' life ways, their behaviors, beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. But there is no consensus among sociologists and anthropologists regarding the definition of culture. But according to Edward Taylor, culture is a complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Culture has different characteristics. The first one is learned behavior. Learned behavior is an action that a person learns through experience, observations, and education. Not all behavior is learned, but most of it is learned. Second, culture is abstract. Culture exists in the minds or habits of the members of society. Culture is the shared ways of doing and thinking. There are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior, ranging from the regularized activity of persons to their eternal reasons for so doing. In other words, we cannot see culture as we can only see human behavior. This behavior occurs in regular, patterned fashion and it is called culture. Third, culture is a pattern of learned behavior. The definition of culture indicated that the learned behavior of people is patterned. Each person's behavior often depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. The point is that, as a general rule, behavior is somewhat integrated or organized with related behaviors of other person. Fourth, culture is the product of behavior. Culture learnings are the products of behavior. As the person behaves, there occur changes in him. He acquires the ability to swim, to feel hatred towards someone, or to sympathize with someone. They have grown out of his previous behaviors. In both ways, then, human behavior is the results of behavior. The experience of other peoples are impressed on one's as he grows up. And also many of his traits and abilities have grown out of his own past behavior. Fifth, culture includes attitudes, values, and knowledge. There is widespread error in the thinking of many people who tend to regard the ideas, attitudes, and notions which they have as their own. It is easy to overestimate the uniqueness of one's own attitude and ideas. When there is agreement with other people, it is largely unnoticed. But when there is disagreement or difference, one is usually conscious of it. Your differences, however, may also be cultural. For example, suppose you are a Catholic and the other person a Protestant. 6. Culture also includes material object. Material culture is composed of the things that humans make and use. This aspect of culture includes a wide variety of things, from buildings, technological gadgets, and clothing, to film, music, literature, and arts, among others. Aspects of material cultures are commonly called or referred to as cultural products. 7. Culture is shared by the members of society. The pattern of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by one or few persons, but usually by a large proportion. Person may share some part of culture unequally. For example, as Americans do the Christian religion. To some person, Christianity is the all-important predominating idea in life. To others, it is less preoccupying or important. And to still others, it is of marginal significance only. The point to our discussion is not that culture or any part of it is shared identically, but that it is shared by the members of society to a sufficient extent. 8. Culture is superorganic. Culture is sometimes called superorganic. It implies that culture is somehow superior to nature. The word superorganic is useful which implies that what may be quite different phenomenon from a cultural point of view. For example, a tree means different things to the botanist who studies it, to the old woman who uses it for shade in the late summer afternoon, the farmer who picks its fruits, and to the motorist who collides with it, and to the young lovers who carve their initials in its trunks. The same physical objects and physical characteristic, in other words, may constitute a variety of different cultural objects and cultural characteristics. 9. Culture is pervasive. Culture is pervasive, it touches every aspect of life. The pervasiveness of culture is manifest in two ways. First, culture provides an unquestioned context within which individual action and response takes place. Not only emotional action but relational actions are governed by cultural norms. Second, culture pervades social activities and institutions. According to Ruth Benedict, a culture like an individual is a more or less consistent pattern of thoughts and action. With each culture, there come into a big characteristic, purposes not necessarily shared by other types of society. 10. Culture is a way of life. Culture means simply the way of life of people or their design of living. Kluckman and Kelly define in its essence, culture is a historical derived system of explicit and implicit design for living, which tends to be shared by all or special designed members of a group. When we say explicit culture, it refers to the similarities in word and action, which can be directly observed. For example, the adolescent cultural behavior can be generalized from regularities in dress, mannerisms, and conversation. Implicit culture exists in abstract forms, which are not quite obvious. 11. Culture is a human product. Culture is not a force operating by itself and independent of the human actors. There is an unconscious tendency to defy culture, to endue it with life, and treat it as a thing. In a strict sense, therefore, culture does not do anything on its own. It does not cause the individual to act in a particular way, nor does it make the normal individual into a maladjusted one. Culture, in short, is a human product. It is not independently endowed with life. 12. Culture is idealistic. Culture embodies the ideas and norms of a group. It is a sum total of the ideal patterns and norms of behavior of a group. Culture consists of intellectual, artistic, and social ideals and institutions which the members of the society profess and to which they strive to conform. 13. Culture is transmitted among members of society. The cultural ways are learned by persons from persons. Many of them are handed down by one's elder, by parents, teachers, and others of somewhat older generation. Other cultural behaviors are handed up to elders. Some of the transmission of a culture is among contemporaries. For example, the style of the dress, political views, and the use of recent labor-saving devices. One does not acquire a behavior pattern spontaneously. He learns it. 14. Culture is continually changing. There is one fundamental and inescapable attribute or special quality of culture, the fact of an unending change. Some societies at sometimes change slowly, and hence, in comparison to other societies, seems not to be changing at all, but they are changing, even though not obviously so. 15. Culture is a variable. Culture varies from society to society, group to group, hence, we say culture of India or England. Further, culture varies from group to group within the same society. There are subcultures within a culture. Cluster of pattern which are both related to general culture of the society and yet distinguishable from it are called subcultures. 16. Culture is an integrated system. Culture possesses an order and system. Its various parts are integrated with each other, and any new elements which is introduced is also integrated. Lastly, language is the chief vehicles of culture. Man lives not only in the present but also in the past and future. He is able to do this because he possesses language which transmitted to him what was learned in the past and enables him to transmit the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. A specialized language pattern serves as a common bond to the members of a particular group or subculture. Although culture is transmitted in variety of ways, language is one of the most important vehicles for perpetuating cultural patterns. To conclude, culture is everything which is socially learned and shared by the members of the society. It is the culture that, in the wide focus of the world, distinguishes individual from individual, group from group, and society. Here are the following important functions of culture. First, culture defines situations. Each culture has many subtle cues which define each situation. It reveals whether one should prepare to fight, run, laugh, or make love. For example, suppose someone approaches you with right hand outstretched at waist level. What does this mean? So, this means he wishes to shake hands in friendly greetings is perfectly obvious. That is, to anyone familiar with our culture. But, in other places or time, the outstretched hand might mean hostility or warning. One does not know what to do in a situation until he has defined the situation. Each society has its insult and fighting words. Thus, cues or hints which define situations appear in an infinite variety. A person who moves from one society into another will spend many years misreading the cues. For example, laughing at a wrong place. Second, culture defines attitudes, values, and goals. Each person learns in his culture what is good, true, and beautiful. Attitudes, values, and goals are defined by culture, while the individual normally learns them as unconsciously as he learned the language. Attitude are tendencies to feel and act in certain ways. Values are measures of goodness or desirability. For example, we value private property, government, and many other things and experience. Goals are those attainments which our values defines as worthy. Example, winning the race, gaining the affection of a particular girl, or becoming president of a firm. By approving certain goals and ridiculing others, the culture channels individuals' ambitions. In this way, culture determines the goals of life. Third, culture defines myths, legends, and supernatural. Myths and legends are important part of every culture. They may inspire, reinforce effort and sacrifice, and bring comfort in the bereavement. Whether they are true is sociologically unimportant. Ghosts are real to people who believe in them and who act upon this belief. We cannot understand the behavior of any group without knowing something of the myths, legends, and supernatural beliefs they hold. Myths and legends are powerful forces in a group's behavior. Culture also provides the individual with ready-made view of the universe. The nature of divine power and the important moral issues are defined by the culture. The individual does not have to select, but this is trained in a Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, or some other religious tradition. This tradition gives answer for the measure of life and fortuities the individual to meet life's crisis. Last function is culture provides behavior pattern. The individual need to go through painful trial and error learning to know what food can be eaten without poisoning himself, or how to live among people without fear. He finds a ready-made set of pattern awaiting him which he needs only to learn and follow. The culture maps out the path to matrimony. The individual does not have to wonder how to one secure mate. He knows the procedures defined by his culture. A society without rules or norms to define right and wrong behavior would be very much likely a heavy traveled street without traffic sign, or any understood rules meeting and passing vehicles. Chaos would be the result in either case. Social order cannot rest on assumptions that men will spontaneously behave in ways conducive to social harmony. Culture and society. The relationship between society, culture, and personality is stressed by Ralph Lenton. A society is organized group of individuals. A culture is an organized group of learned responses. The individual is a living organism capable of independent thought, feelings, and action. A society cannot exist apart from culture. A society is always made of persons and their groupings. People carry and transmit culture but they are not culture. No culture can exist except it is embodied in a society of man. No society can operate without cultural directives. Like matter and energy, like mind and body, they are interdependent and interacting yet express different aspects of the human situations. One must always keep in mind that interdependence and reciprocal relationship between culture and society. Each is distinguishable concept in which the patterning and organizations of whole is more important than any of the component parts.